I am so happy to have this one-on-one with you.
I'm thrilled. Thank you so much for inviting me.
I have been after you for the longest time, but I just want to start with saying I am so proud of you for the same reason I'm proud of myself for tackling, I think, one of the most difficult things to do, which is admitting, it's like almost it's admitting powerlessness in a way and giving into it and saying, I'm taking this on. So
Yeah,
bravo.
thank you. You as well. It's really hard to admit you're wrong,
Right.
you
But
know.
let's start with the fact that you lost how much weight in your
Oh
journey?
gosh, 92 pounds now this year.
So awesome.
Yeah, it's amazing. Transformation from the inside out.
Yeah, I know. I did that in high school and lost 65 pounds into my senior year. And I was like, I said as wide as I was tall, because I was like a square walking around, you know.
That's kind of how I was too.
How tall are you?
5'2".
You give such a tall impression.
Isn't that funny? You're not the first person who said that just this week. No, I'm a little.
I would have said 5'9", like I'm sitting here, which is what I am now. Hello. Anyway, yeah, so you know what that feels like in terms
Yeah.
of stripping away at not only the layers of clothes and stare in the mirror. I mean, there's a chapter in my book, which I hope you read.
Yeah, I can't wait to read it. We were just talking about it.
I literally, I'll tell you the quick story. So I
Okay.
sell Quaaludes in high school, you know what I mean? So very popular. But this girl came over to pick some up and she was like this petite little thing. She goes, oh, I lost 8 pounds on Dr. Atkins' diet. I'm like, you have the nerve to talk about losing weights to me? Like, even in general conversation, like, can you look who you're talking to? Anyway, when she left, I just said, that was it. Cause you kind of know that you need to lose weight. You just kind of go into denial, which is such a lovely ability to go into. Anyway, I just looked at the mirror and I said, I want to see my penis again and not by looking. And
Not
hence,
quite the same for me, but
anyway, so bravo to that. And just bravo to everything. I know how much it meant to you to go from being a conservative to where you are now, which is one of our best spokesmodels.
I never, it wasn't on purpose, like I did not intend to go down this path of TikTok at all. Like I was just messing around with my kids doing dance videos. And, along the way as a Republican, I was, hearing things that I could no longer deny when I was starting to see the attacks on LGBTQ community. Even as a conservative, I supported that community, or I said I did. And so how do you ignore when they're proposing bills and using the rhetoric that they're using? How do you remain on that side if you're an ally?
Right.
So it was things like that that just slowly pulled me away from the party.
But yes, however, you're so eloquent and you're so almost not militant, but you have such conviction where, in a different way, you make a lot of rational sense. I just come from a very emotional, hysterical kind of angry, non-understanding, not willing to give an inch to people that are just not understanding the moment that we're living in. And
I think I come from myself though, Abe, because um, it was those conversations that I had with people that were rational and calm that helped me leave the conservative party. And so I tried to give that same grace when I can to people who were like me.
right. And it seems that I am in this bubble where, because of what's going on in since October 7th, and
Yeah.
I like, again, I've always said be a one issue voter in this election between Trump and Joe because of the disparity of everyone's and their, they're almost like their resistance to old people. And having lost my grandparents in World War II, I figured it's not okay. I'll go for the grandpa thing, at least be willing. But I just said, if you're voting for one issue specifically that's in your best interest, chances are Joe's going to win. And all these people that are voting for thinking that Trump's going to save Israel, and that's just, it's I don't understand that. And I am constantly getting attacked for being willing to go down this path with Kamala, which, girl, you're going to have to drag my sorry ass off that.
I stand with peace as much as possible. I don't like to see any innocent people unalived.
100%.
As I know you feel the same, and that's my stance.
But you get accused by the far left of just because you want the hostages to be released as step one, that I then become like the enemy. And that's where this has gotten to a gray area. Yesterday I was on the Don Lemon show, and Harper was on, and he's running in Michigan and has galvanized that, the Muslim vote. And we got into not really contentious, but it's kind of like I've always say I'm a one issue voter. And he's like, well, that's not, he said, that's kind of arrogant. And I'm like, no, it isn't. I said, if whoever is voting in your constituency, if they found you to vote for you, then that's great. But if they're not going to vote at the top of the ticket in the same party that you're in, well, they're not voting for their best interest, because what's on the side of that is the Muslim ban. So they're better off finding out, what are they women, or are they environmentalists? Are they into healthcare? There's got to be another one issue that they can at least rationalize voting for now Kamala than even Joe, So I can't, and I don't want to get into kind of arguments that could happen out of that, because it's very simple. Release the hostages, and then everyone's gonna, and if anything doesn't go well, then I'm all in there. But
yeah.
Yeah,
I understand. Yeah, I got some backlash a little bit in what is now my new party, the Democratic Party. When I was one of the few creators on TikTok that came and said that I thought that Joe Biden should step down, and I got a lot of backlash from that. And it's not because I don't think that Joe Biden has done an amazing job. He has. Wow, has that man earned my vote from everything that he's been able to accomplish? He's a complete moderate, probably too moderate for me even at this point. But I know. But I think that we see now that the correct decision was to have him step down, and the party is invigorated by Kamala Harris. And I think what she can bring, it's kind of a clean slate, but also bringing what the Biden-Harris administration was able to accomplish. So I think, I don't know, my pettiness is like, I told you so.
No. You and James Carville and Bill Maher, you're in good company. It was, there was something when, right at the night of the debate, right, that fateful night, I was part of a group chat post on Don Lemon show. It's the first time I was on there, and somebody said, because we were all talking about Kamala's going to run and whatever, even that night, the conversation started. The first thing I said is like, I feel like I just sat through Shiva, which
I know it should
be. So
that's a good way to describe it, honestly.
Wasn't it? But and it ultimately was kind of true. But the thing that somebody else said was, David Bender, who's a writer, he said, a candidate is a candidate until he's not the candidate. So you just like even if you, you know what I mean? Just like act as if. It's that whole thing about, sobriety, which is, you act as if until you can get there,
I looked at Joe Biden as somebody who stepped up to the plate to save democracy. And I looked at him as stepping down to save democracy.
100%.
And boy, isn't he a national hero for that.
Totally.
He put country above self, which we know the other guy can't do.
Shortly minutes after he stepped down, I was at lunch with a group of people, and one friend of mine that's in from Brussels was the person to say that was what was the word he used? It was like not a brave choice. It was something, I forget the word, but he did something that was a grand gesture that everyone was immediately not reacting that way. Like it took a day or a few hours at least for people to see that as one of these beautiful things that he gave America, which is opportunity to get back the way we are engaged in the moment.
Exactly. But isn't it interesting? Because I think there was, from our party, fear of change. Right. And, that's what we come after Republicans for. They are so fearful of change and progress and moving forward. And it's okay. It's okay to progress and move forward. And I think that she's the change that America needs right now.
I mean, just the excitement of that alone. I was on that White Dudes for Harris.
You were?
Oh, yeah. We had like 170,000 plus people raised.
Was it motivating?
$1 million. Great speakers, a great combination of speakers. The thing that the Democrats tend to lean into, which is ultimately, I hope they don't do that as much as they did through the Obama years, which is that celebrity stuff. We just hand over the reins to the celebrities, and I think what I've learned most, which won't be silent, and the platform I've cultivated, which is I'm very targeted. I delete anyone that even remotely stinks of two-day-old fish. You know what I mean? I'm spend as much time deleting as I'm doing engaging, because I just want to feel like the original years of the internet, where we really found our community, and that's where we get to kind of embrace one another's feelings and ideas. But of course I'm old, so I forgot.
Celebrities. We're talking about celebrities.
Right.
I think
so
celebrities.
there was a great mix. So there was a great mix of politicians, regular people. There was a poet, just activists, and it really felt like what this whole thing is about, and this platform, which is we the people. And we saw the backlash to celebrities because of what happened at the Met Gala. Remember,
yeah.
Controversy, right? So yeah, of course you need celebrity, whatever, and Beyonce song, freedom, great, but it's us. We'll be the ones voting. They only have one vote, and we communicate in a much more succinct way with our community to get out and actually vote.
Yeah, it's the grassroots. On my platform, I think my push is going to be from now to the election is voter registration and making sure that we get out to vote, because when we vote, we win. And, if you're listening right now, make sure that you take time right now to go to one of the sites. Can I say them online? Vote.org or Rock the Vote, because a lot of times these red states are taking you off your registration. In some cases you have just till the end of this month or next month. So make sure that you're registered to vote and make a plan to vote, share it on your social media. Everyone should be checking their voter registration.
Yeah, even today in Florida, I saw a post about that they're kind of purging anyone that registered to vote or voted online. They're purging you. So
yeah, so you don't want to be locked out of voting this year and your voice not being heard. So
it's just so shocking that that whole idea is just so foreign to me. In the same way that there was this post that people were interviewing this couple from Holland, and they're like, we don't understand how you can have a criminal run for your president in your country.
Oh, I saw that. And by the way, a jury found him liable for SA. I mean, it's insane to me, really.
But what horrifies me is that I am getting constantly direct messaged for people to say, you need to switch over to I said, first of all, I was raised better than this. My
Yeah.
parents raised me to be good people. Like my mom was in Dachau for 3 years. Like,
Mm.
don't she wrote her MO was I'd seen evil and I only wanted to raise good children, you know. And with that has been my shining star to who I'm with and how I operate and who I am. And I can't vote the other way. And
No.
had a long history with how annoyed I am with him, having lived in New York City through the 80s, when he kind of brought in that whole yuppie culture and the whole quest for, acquiring aspiration versus inspiration, which is where I come from.
Yeah, I love that. I didn't realize that your mother was in Dachau. I visited there when I was 10, and talk about something that's seared in my memory. And I think, our world would be a lot better off if people traveled, listened to people, not be extreme nationalists, but be globalists and listen to the people's opinions and experiences. We learn a lot from that.
Not only was my mom in Dachau, she actually went to a couple different camps because that's what they did back then. They just dragged you around, But my dad was sent to Siberia to a gulag. So,
Wow.
so I come to
Is this all in the book? Is this all in the book?
yeah.
Yeah.
It's less about them. It's much more about me. But
It's always about us, isn't it?
the next book that is I'm starting it already because so many people see. The thing is, Alzheimer's runs in my family, so I was concerned before it gets too late that I would forget some of my more important life stories that were like transformational and what brought me to feeling like, and it says in the title, won't be silent, but don't stop till it matters. And that's something that was really important to me because my parents had survived the Holocaust. What was I ever going to accomplish that really meant anything in terms of who was I ever going to be outside of being a good person, which is a good thing to do. But I've kind of been a fuck up, and until this moment where you'll see in the book, I find purpose, and this is part of it, just communicating truth and honesty and not being silent and engaging people to speak up against oppression and the project that I'm working on, these 2 documentary films that are all about speaking up. And
Well, it's amazing to me that anyone would want to pull you to a side of a government that is fascist in nature.
it's upsetting. I even did a post about it this morning. I'm like, it's depressing. It's depressing that you can choose a side where fascism is, who's really like, even if he's not the fascist, the whole party, the structure of it, the financing of that, the JD thing of it, it's all fascists.
Well, to me, it's also using similar language. When you go back to things like lying press or Lügenpresse, that's, today's fake news. I mean, we shouldn't be mimicking those types of leaders. Vermin and poisoning the bloodline, and he should apologize for that.
Vermin, greatest hits,
I know. Let's see what else we can pull, huh? It worked back then. Let me try it. When you unify against an entire group as your campaign, and that's exactly what he's doing. This time it's migrants, and he's demonizing a whole group.
And Democrats. I mean, he's gonna, it's almost like you really want to see if what he's saying he's gonna do. Like, what are you gambling on? Like, to me, it's just about, I'm not that selfish. Look, I have an Israeli husband, and
a very handsome Israeli husband, might I add.
I know, beauty. That's not how I mean, I'm an American first, and I'm not going to be made to feel guilty. Especially, don't try making me feel guilty. I had to survive Jewish guilt from childhood. Like, you can't. That's like not a win for me.
I had the Catholic guilt.
Guilt, it's like it's a cross to bear.
Oh, no, that it is. No longer for me, though. I think I've been able to get away from those demons, I think.
that comes with when we shed those layers that we use as protection. I'll never understand the, why I was eating to fill whatever void. I mean, it's a hard one to come to terms with, because when I don't know how it was for you, but I knew deep down I was unhappy, yet it was like being happy wasn't my first choice. I'd rather have that extra box of yodels or something, to kind of stuff down those feelings. But yeah, when, I was not only raised, like I was raised with stories about the Holocaust too, since child. There's a lot to hear and come to terms with. Anyway, cheerier conversation. Let's talk about Kamala Harris.
Let's talk about her. Yeah, I think I was a little hesitant before they announced her. I didn't know how she would be received from the general public, and I'm personally pleasantly surprised. I think she gets a bad rap, and she doesn't deserve it. She hasn't earned that. I think being a female and rising in politics is difficult to do anyway. And then she's a Black woman at the top of the ticket, and that will present its own challenges in today's world.
Right.
But boy, would I like to see her win.
But the energy around this moment is just so exciting, and it's almost like we were like plotting into the DNC in August with Joe speaking.
We were like, okay, we're gonna do it.
No, there was like the dread of the DNC.
But now, yeah, I think this is clearly the right decision. And for anyone who says that our voices aren't heard, over 80% of the Democratic Party supports her as the nominee, and she will have earned the delegates. So, yeah.
Those nervous Nellies that are like, well, she wasn't official, it wasn't a primary. It's like, snap out of it. Just you can't go against the tidal wave of joy that everyone is kind of embracing right now. And however that turns out is not where we need to be. We need to just be here now, register, volunteer. It's really about galvanizing your own personal community too. Like, I think that's really important, which was what the message was yesterday on that White Dudes for Harris call, because I'm not the traditional white dude. Because I've been communicating this since 2020 and finding my voice here, and always. Actually, I've been an activist since 1969, when we were having the march of the moratorium to end the war in Vietnam, even though I was in grade school, but I blocked the school from it's in the book, great chapter. But I knew then that, the war is not the answer, which is why I don't think the war is the answer overseas or anywhere.
I agree, yeah.
So yeah, I'm a peacenik. I've been signing every one of my emails and letters my whole life with peace, Abe. And now I go peace, figuratively, literally and figuratively.
Yeah, it's actually as if we don't all want peace, and definitely I would think that as a whole Americans want peace. But I mean, if you look at these two campaigns, Harris is running on hope and positivity, and Trump's campaign is fear, hatred, and anger. And although fear is a really powerful motivator. So he's got to keep them scared.
Okay, and on that note, fear, and we need to instill fear on losing your freedoms. The end. Like, that's why it goes back to that one vote thing. Like, what are you most fearful of losing in terms of your quality of life, your freedom to do X, Y, or Z? I can't decide what that is for you. I know that for myself. It's actually not even gay rights for me. It's much more about the Supreme Court for me, because fascists, like, we annihilated them back in the 40s. I mean, can we do that again without having to go to war and just kind of vote? Let's just vote out the fascists.
And unfortunately, I think not everyone understands what's at stake with another 4 years of Trump in the Supreme Court, because he might have the ability to replace 2 justices, put in younger justices, more conservative Heritage Foundation stamped judges that will do the bidding of potentially a Project 2025 type of mandate. So
I think potentially you can eliminate that word. I think if that happens and he gets voted back in, Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito will step down.
yes.
And you will just automatic. It won't even be like we wait till they croak. It's going to be like, let's just do this.
Well, and women, pay attention. The fact that Donald Trump chose a JD Vance as his running mate shows the direction of the party. He didn't choose someone closer to the middle or more moderate. He chose somebody right of himself. And I already believe that he and his movement are alt-right. So when you're choosing somebody who doesn't want exceptions for rape or incest, that's the direction that the Republican Party is going in. Pay attention.
Yeah, no, it's total. What's it called? Wait, what's the word with it's the father. Wait, I'm telling you, I'm old. Anyway.
Oh, I think I'm right there with you.
In any event, yeah, it's horrible white men. And that's why last night's call was so great, because white men don't have a great rap in this country. It's getting, and that's what they're galvanizing those dudes that are in the basement, kind of,
And what's their why? What is their why to vote for Harris? I'm curious. I mean, I know for me, it could be, being an ally or supporting my daughter's reproductive rights, or just democracy in general. But what was the push last night on the call? What was the white man's why?
To support women and to support the fact that this is I've stopped using the word "let's save our democracy" or "threat to democracy."
Overused. Yeah.
It's not only overused, but I don't even think we have a democracy. I don't even think that's what we're in right now, because it's all so brittle and fleeting and going like it's like slipping through our fingers. It's like trying to hold water in your, the palm of your hand, But I believe the word freedom. That's why I was so excited when that song became the theme for Kamala, because leading up to that moment, even through the Joe thing, I was like, look, forget about democracy. People's eyes roll back in their head when you start talking to them. But freedom, we all know. I like freedom. I, as a gay man who is married, I fought for gay rights back in the 70s. And when I first was able to walk down the street with the person I was dating at that time, and again, fighting for AIDS medication in the 80s. I fought for my place at this table. And for anyone to even remotely kind of challenge that for whatever other reason you can justify, whether it's for taxes or this, girl, I'm broke. So they're never going to get me for the money thing. You know what I mean? But whatever, I think that freedom is what this country kind of, freedom ring. We're freaking sing. You can't sing that song if you are going to vote for Trump. That's all there is to it. And I don't care how arrogant and stupid it sounds.
No, I think you're right. And if you look at the direction our country is going in regards to freedom, we're following in the footsteps of people like Viktor Orban in Hungary and Putin, and even to an extent like Iran. Women's rights, there's only about 4 other countries who've rolled back women's rights. Do we want to follow in the footsteps of like Honduras? Where are we moving? We're not progressing as a country, we're regressing, and we're regressing human rights. And those aren't the countries that we want to emulate.
No, and this is that moment that, as much as every election is contentious, and believe me, 2020 was a beaut, you know what I mean? But that's why I also try to say, because I get so many emails and direct messages, fearful of the moment. Like everyone is afraid, especially when Joe was a candidate. countless direct messages. I'm so afraid of what's going to happen. I go, we did this. We did this already. We're not in foreign territory. We got him out of the White House. We can keep him out of the White House. We've done this. We know what we're doing. Fear is not the issue. There's nothing to fear but fear itself. Is that
And
not
here's my, has he really galvanized more voters? Because, I voted for Trump in 16 and 20, sadly. But amongst, at least in my personal framework, people who voted for him, they saw January 6th, saw that he's a, 34-time convicted felon. They saw that he was found liable, and his rhetoric has gotten worse. Again, we talked about the vermin and the poison in the bloodline. So I don't know how he's galvanizing new voters or gaining new voters, I should say. I mean, he's hardening his base, which was there in 2020, but how would he get new voters? I think this could be a big win for us if done right.
I think this whole idea of getting the Jews to think that he's going to help Israel, that's one, but it's a small contingent.
That's a new group. That's a new group, yeah.
And it's a small one. However, and here's my concern with that, which could be a very good strategic thinking, is that if we see in September when the schools resume, and if Joe and Kamala don't really minimize these campus attacks on the college campuses again, I think that's going to scare, it's like we win in the margins. So now we're looking at urban moms and dads. They're not into that. They're not into that at all. They're not into the violent. They don't want to see that on the news. They don't want their kids to see it on the news. They don't want their kids that are at those colleges to be, even if they're not Jewish, just to be subject to people with their faces covered, screaming. And so that's where I get concerned with if Joe and Kamala don't aggressively minimize and deal with that. Because in Florida, you don't see that. And that's because of DeSantis. And Lord knows I am no fan of go-go boots DeSantis.
But don't you think that's also the campus, the type of students that Florida attracts versus these more progressive, Ivy League colleges?
No. I know people who live in Florida. He has been you cannot get away with that in Florida. They will arrest you and scoop that away, and the blue states is where you're seeing more of that. And that is where I fear that it's going to be about becoming much more assertive on how far that can happen. But I'm just, that's where I get the hair, the backs, whatever hair that I don't have anymore in the back.
But you can still feel it. It's still there. It's like phantom hair, whatever they say.
Christmas past in my hair. Anyway, so is there anything that you want to kind of go over or talk about that's a personal issue in this next election?
And that's a big question. What?
If not, then we always have vice president ideas for her to pick.
Oh, vice presidential ideas. No, I just think you need to look at the vast difference between these two candidates. And again, what their platform is. Donald Trump is a perpetual victim. Donald Trump uses divisive language. And, how can you vote for a man who was willing to overturn our Constitution to try to stay in power? That, he's so worked up about his assassination attempt, and yet he did nothing when an angry mob went after his vice president. In fact, he encouraged it by writing another tweet about him, that he didn't have the courage to do what he needed to do as they were calling for his unaliving and marching down to the Capitol. So surrounding Donald Trump is chaos. And I don't think that we can have another 4 years of that. I think we've had a steady arm as a president, and Joe Biden and Harris, I think, will continue with that.
Yeah, no.
Um, and protect human rights. I guess I would ask any user, what rights has the Democrat Party tried to take from you? They've been in power for 4 years. What rights, what freedoms, as you said, have they tried to take from you? Because the list is very long of the freedoms they're trying to take from Americans.
No, that's why to me, there's no option here. It's again, it's like if your freedoms matter to you, then the choice is clear. And speaking of choice, who do you think she should choose for vice president?
Well, so my number one choice, besides, picking what's, best for a swing state, I'd love to see Pete. And that's because even when I was a conservative Republican, I watched the Democrat debates, and Pete was far and above my favorite. And I think he could be others as well. He's a really smart guy. He served this country, but I don't know if America's ready for that.
Yeah.
We might be pushing them a little too far, but
Yeah.
that would be, but I also say, go all the way in. The Republicans are, they're using an alt-right candidate, and they chose JD Vance, who doesn't believe, single women should have as much of a vote as married women, right? So if they're willing to go all in, why aren't we? And let's show the difference between inclusion and exclusion, and hope and hate. So, but other than that, probably Kelly.
Kelly was the first person I thought of, and then I kind of romanced the Jew for a second, Shapiro. But
not a bad choice, though. I mean, I think Pennsylvania is a swing state,
Right. No. Logistically, that makes sense, but kind of, he's got like 4 little kids. And my sister's like, let him be a father for those little kids. Forget it.
Harris's husband is Jewish, so you already, right?
No, you have that, and also Mark Kelly's wife is Jewish, so
right. So for people on the other side of the fence in that community to think that they're going to be anti-Jewish is absurd.
Yeah, just the whole. We still live in a very racist, homophobic, Islamophobic, misogynist. The list of what this country really is so not pretty.
They've come to one of my lives. They start off like, okay, like I'm an independent, and within about 10 to 15 minutes, it all comes out. Their bigotry, their misogyny. It's just they can't hold on to it for that long. They can't hide it. Almost every time I sit there and I'm like, it's just a matter of time before they start showing who they are. Just got to talk long enough.
Bashir too, and that would get that whole Christian kind of coalition.
Yeah, I wonder when she'll have to announce soon, I think.
Well, it has to be within the next week, because by August 7th, it has to be on the Ohio ballot. So yeah, we're in I mean, what's more exciting than this moment? Even just be here now. I mean, the whole idea is that we live a day at a time, right? Be here now. Today matters, right? So
Yeah.
it doesn't matter what's going to happen in November. Like,
how about another woman? Do you think that you can do a female ticket?
Gretchen? I mean, if you don't think they're ready for a gay man, honey, I don't think, talk about this misogynist country. I don't know. I love Gretchen, but I think it's so fleeting of an idea that I don't know if I'll ever see it even in my lifetime. But based on what you said, just going all in to women would be like, you know what I mean? Cat ladies are going
There'd be something about grabbing them for sure.
God. I mean, it depends. I mean, we know that the Republicans are freaked out. But then again, you also have that, we have to remember, so many white women voted for Trump in 2020. No, but how many like refugees from, are like, how many women like you have come around? is really, it would be interesting to try to find out.
Well, and can I kind of go back to something I want to speak to for women, especially those who are conservative in nature? I think they need to pay attention to the unintended consequences that happen with this pro-life movement. The domino effect or the unintended consequences will come back to them. So when we see in these states who have these really restrictive abortion rights, that 20% of their OBGYNs are fleeing to blue states because they don't want to be criminalized or penalized or fined just for doing their job. So in these red states where you already have high rates of maternal death rate and infant mortality death rates are higher, they're creating deserts, especially in these rural areas where they won't have OBGYNs. There's wards that are closing, maternity wards that are closing. So you're hurting yourself. You're hurting yourself. You're hurting your daughters in a way that you don't even realize, that when they need good care from an OBGYN, it's going to be further away. It's going to be harder to access. So I think they need to really pay attention to how these laws are going to impact them. And this year we had more abortions than we've had in 10 years. You're not stopping them. What you're doing is making it more dangerous, more expensive, but you're not stopping it. You're making it less safe for women, and you're hurting your daughters.
Criminally more difficult.
Yeah, yeah. So, and enforcing, women to carry unwanted pregnancies in a system where we already have too many foster care children that we can't take care of. So I don't really see how that's protecting the children.
Yeah, no. I mean, but then again, MAGA has become voting against their own interests now since the tea backers, like that. So against healthcare, I mean, they're just not interested in what's in their best interest, which is why I try to just keep it as simple as possible about just freedom, so that maybe someone who's MAGA can figure out what. Maybe, I mean, there's not even hope for that. I just think we need to speak to the Democrats who historically have not voted in 2022 that Absolutely. Are registered and are couch potatoes and are you over 65? You want your health care? You want to pay more for medication? Do you want challenged Social Security? So those are the old couch potatoes. And you get the 50 to 65 couch potatoes. You have a daughter that could be potentially, SA that needs an abortion and you personally can't afford to fly her to California or whatever. You know what I mean? That's the urgency of, see, for me, after seeing how Gen Z, I know they're supporting Kamala and I think it's great, but I still hear them talking about Genocide Joe and, and I've seen genocide, a lot of stuff coming up too, which is unacceptable. But I'd say, yeah, hope for Gen Z to come around since their numbers are so large, legally now of age to vote. But let's get the people that know that there's something on the chopping block for their lives or freedoms to get up and vote, which is why again our own communities.
It's the third party vote that will harm us, right? And voting for a Jill Stein or voting for an RFK or sitting this one out because your convictions. Again, I think the focus is, and you and I talked about it earlier, is 2 Supreme Court justices will affect this generation for decades, right? Yeah, the Chevron ruling. I mean, even giving a president the type of immunity that they've given him is insane. I don't want that for any president, Democrat, Republican, Independent.
No. Yeah. So just that in of itself is why I can't respond to anyone in a kind way that's telling me that I should switch my vote. I'm so not kind, but I have so many good one-liners from it. It's just been so much fun.
Is that going to be the second book?
Some of it is definitely in the second book. I mean, the idea is that because I just kind of wrote down certain key points of my life, like when I was that, with this, because I didn't want to forget because of Alzheimer's looming, right? But now that I've gotten through it and I finished it, and everyone direct messaging me like, what happened between there's like big pockets missing. So now the working title for book 2 is Between the Cracks.
Oh, to fill in. That's great. And no, literally, we were just talking about it on my live yesterday, and Thomas, the bishop, was, just rave reviews on your book. And
Oh, I love that.
yeah,
Yes.
so he's going to do a piece on that to encourage people to go out, and I will as well. But I need to read it first.
No, whatever. I mean, I'm here for the journey of it. It was like my bucket list. I wanted to do this. I have literally not done anything since last April, which is why I'm officially broke. But that's okay because it's joy. I'm in this total space of joy. But the other thing I'm just going to say is that the documentary Won't Be Silent is slated to be on Max in October, and it's the history of women in protest music. And it's co-produced by Stacey Abrams and Selena Gomez. So that's looming, but I'll have
Got a
more.
lot going on.
Yeah, it's a lot of, it's a lot of things where there's no money involved. But
I know, but it's feel good. It's feel good. There's a payment there, right?
And then the other thing is the story of what brought me to Won't Be Silent altogether is in the book. It culminates in the book, is about a piece of music that was written by my uncle in a concentration camp as a song of resistance to the Nazis, which he was killed in 75 years after his death. Someone who was in that camp wrote about it in a book and it was acknowledged to my uncle. So I thought, from the ashes of the Holocaust comes this message to speak up against no matter what. So that became the whole reason why I started this whole movement, because I'd been filming since it actually, and that came out around the time the Nazis were marching in Charlottesville. So talk about like this perfect storm of, I need to do something with this project. But then I started filming and we raised money and everything was going great because I was rather than just do a Holocaust film, I wanted to do a piece about that in times of oppression, people turn to music. So whether it's the concentration camp, it's the cotton fields, or it's the inner city streets, music becomes this kind of opportunity to embrace the moment and be in the day and find joy, And then COVID happened, so I was locked down. So that's how I found this platform. So that's the second project, is coming back, kind of like a We Are the Worldie of bringing all people together. I've had it done in different languages and different genres, and that's the idea. So probably no money in that either, but I will die happy. You know what I mean? And I would have mattered. I would have mattered. That was the whole point. That's why I was put on earth, to feel like whatever I do is a teaching for someone else, and it matters not only to me but to somebody else.
Well, I also love that it's something I push on my platform as well, is not to be silent. And in today's world, it's so easy to be, right? Because everything is so contentious, but it's our words that matter, and it's speaking up and speaking out for what is right. And don't be fearful of that. I encourage people all the time to speak with their friends and family, because a lot of them aren't educated on what's really happening, right? I mean, you and I pay probably too much attention to it. The vast majority of Americans and your friends and family, they just don't. I mean, just the other day I was shopping, surprise, surprise. And I was talking to these two shop owners, and I was like, do you understand what JD Vance stands for? I mean, he's even like the no fault divorce thing, right? That Republicans are pushing. And they're like, what do you mean no fault divorce? I'm like, no, they want to go back to a time where women have to prove why they're leaving their spouse. Not just, I don't like him at all. It has to be right. So they weren't aware. They just weren't aware that he didn't want exceptions for rape and incest. They weren't aware what he said about single cat ladies. Like being a single woman is, the worst thing that could happen in our country, and that you're not valued.
Parents, the people who don't have kids. Giving,
Correct. Yeah, being childless, it
right.
makes you less than. And
Right.
so I gave them something to think about. And think about if we all were doing that, if we all were sharing bits and pieces of information, what that does.
Yeah.
It educates our society. And don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Don't be silent. Speak out.
That was the message yesterday, to build your own, in within your own community, within your own neighborhoods, within your own family. And just to say what we started out, what I said to you initially, which would kind of culminate this part of our conversation, which is you've been so outspoken as
Mm.
someone who has relooked at who you were based on who you were voting for, seeing where we are in the moment, speaking out about your journey to lose weight. I mean, girl, the last thing I would say about you is that you're silent.
I, yeah, I'm not silent.
I'll be
I'm a
here
little,
too, by the way.
it was, I've told this story this week. Do we have time for this?
Mhm.
There was some MAGA supporters in the middle of my town, and they were, waving their big Rambo Trump flags and their "Don't Tread on Me" flags and a giant American flag with Trump's face on it. And I was walking with my husband. I'm like, I got to say something. He's like, okay, go ahead. He sits down on the bench. And I walked up and I said, I just have to say, as a survivor of SA, as many women are in this country, it's deeply offensive to me to have a big giant face of a man who's been found by a jury to have essayed a woman flying in my town. And I mean, I look at that as, waving a flag with Bill Cosby's face, or, any other person who has been known to essay women. And they were like, immediately, they were like, oh, what did you say? No, no, no. And he said, yes, yes, yes. And they had to minimize my experience as a victim. And
Right.
another woman came up and, did you turn it into the police? And I was like, no, ma'am, I was, 18 years old. I was a month into college when it happened. I was terrified. I was afraid. And she's like, well, then I don't believe it happened. And this is the problem I have with this MAGA movement, is they will protect Donald Trump at all costs, because if I'm validated in my experience, then those other women have to be validated in theirs, including Eugene. And I think that's what's really dangerous, to invalidate all women just to support this fraud, con man, liar. I don't understand it. I don't understand why women are doing that.
No, I think that's, but the
Long story.
unfortunate, no, I know I know, and that's a very important story that everyone should be able to hear. Not that a million people can hear that, but I just think the thing that is unfortunate about the MAGA movement is that it exists in all of us to be
Yeah.
versus evil. And I've just been trained as an infant on to be search for the good, go towards that. And we see millions of people that are just evil. They're evil. It's as simple as that. And knowing that is that you just have to be surrounded by people who aren't.
Yeah.
That's the unfortunate bottom line, is that it's inherent in all of us. It's just that what do you choose? It's like my two edicts that I live by is life is choice, and that which doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And those are the two things I live by. But I know
Yeah.
it came down to losing weight. It was like I choice. I made a choice every day to eat. I made every day a choice to not eat, or to work out, or to keep it off, or if I gain a couple more pounds, to go back on, because I choose my life. I choose what I do. I unfortunately choose to be broke, but that's beside the point.
But for a good cause, but for a good cause, Abe.
Broke for good. Anyway, but yeah, no, I enjoyed this conversation, and
Me as well.
yeah, I'll keep everybody posted on the documentary, but you
Please
know,
do.
we're in the still final phases or whatever.
All
Editing,
of the things.
good things for everyone. And do you have any other creative projects that you're thinking of doing now that you kind of become a whole new person?
Yeah, the only creative project I'm working on currently is kind of a movement to vote. So I and working on some shirts, possibly, not going back with a "We Vote, We Win" push. And the whole movement I want to encourage is that, men and women wear this shirt on their social media, on their Facebook, on their Instagram, around their town, encouraging people to get out and vote. Because as you and I've talked about throughout this conversation, this is going to be a numbers game.
Yeah.
We vote, we win.
Right.
Period.
I just have to, and I want to end off with when I found this platform after I had to put the Won't Be Silent project on the side.
Yeah.
I found what better way to say I won't be silent than by voting.
Right there.
Bam.
Right there.
Boom. Anyway, love you, sweetheart.
Love you too.
You still on the West Coast?
Yeah, I'm in the Bay Area. I wish I was down your way, else I'd come say hi.
I'll come visit.
Next time.
Bye, honey.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks for coming.